Most people live their entire lives trapped inside a version of reality they never chose. They wake up, look around, and accept what they see as truth. Their bank balance, their relationships, their health, their past mistakes, all of it feels solid, fixed, and unquestionable, and because it feels real, they believe it must be permanent. That belief is the real prison, not reality itself. What if everything you see right now is not the final version of your life, but only a temporary reflection of old assumptions? What if reality is not something you obey, but something you respond to after it has already been decided inside your mind? This is the part most people never understand. Reality does not create your thoughts. Your thoughts create the version of reality you are currently experiencing. From the moment you were born, you were trained to respect what your eyes show you. You were taught that facts are facts, that circumstances matter, and that wishing without evidence is childish. Over time, this training became automatic. You stopped questioning what you see. You stopped imagining beyond what looks possible. And slowly, without realizing it, you handed your creative power over to the external world. But the truth is uncomfortable for most people because it places responsibility back where it belongs, with you. Reality is slow. It lags behind. It is always responding to something that already happened internally. When you look at your life today, you are not seeing the present. You are seeing the echo of past beliefs, past emotional states, past decisions you kept repeating unconsciously. This is why trying to fix reality directly rarely works. You're trying to change the reflection instead of the source. The moment you understand this, something shifts. You stop fighting what is. You stop begging circumstances to change. You stop reacting emotionally to temporary appearances. Instead, you begin to decide. Ignoring reality does not mean denying it emotionally or pretending problems don't exist. It means you stop giving current conditions the authority to decide what comes next. You acknowledge what you see, but you refuse to let it define you. You understand that what is visible right now is already outdated information. Instant manifestation does not mean physical objects teleport into your hands. It means the decision happens instantly. The internal shift is immediate. The moment you assume a new identity, reality has no choice but to reorganize itself around that assumption, with time as a secondary factor, not the cause. Most people wait to feel confident before acting confident. They wait to see money before feeling secure. They wait for love before feeling worthy. This is backwards. Feeling comes first. Identity comes first. Reality follows. The mind does not respond to words. It responds to states. If you repeatedly enter the state of someone who already has what they want, your subconscious accepts that state as normal. And once something feels normal internally, it must express externally. This is not motivation. This is conditioning. Think about how effortlessly you accept things you already believe are true. You don't affirm them. You don't hope for them. You simply expect them. That expectation is power. That is the same mechanism behind instant manifestation, except most people use it unconsciously against themselves. When you say, "This is just how my life is," you are manifesting permanence. When you say, "This is always how it goes for me," you are reinforcing a pattern. The subconscious does not argue. It obeys repetition and emotional certainty. To ignore reality is to break emotional loyalty to the past. It is to stop checking for evidence. It is to stop needing permission from circumstances. The moment you decide internally that something is done, your behavior subtly changes. Your posture changes. Your tone changes. Your patience changes. You stop chasing and start allowing. This is why people who truly expect success move differently. They are not desperate. They are not rushed. They are not easily shaken. They do not need constant reassurance. Their calmness is not confidence. It is familiarity with an outcome they already accepted as inevitable. Reality eventually bends to familiarity. Your job is not to force results. Your job is to become someone for whom the result is normal. When you keep checking reality to see if it has changed yet, you are silently saying you don't believe your decision was real, and reality responds accordingly by staying the same. Faith is not spiritual. Faith is psychological consistency. You do not manifest what you want. You manifest what you assume. If you assume struggle, life delivers resistance. If you assume delay, life delivers waiting. If you assume ease, life reorganizes pathways you cannot consciously predict. The reason this feels instant to those who master it is because the internal shift happens immediately. The external delay is irrelevant because the outcome is already decided internally. Stress disappears not because the problem vanished, but because the identity that worried about it no longer exists. This is where most people fail. They want change without identity death. They want new results without letting go of the old self that created the current reality. But manifestation is replacement, not addition. You cannot keep the same self-image and expect a different life. The moment you decide to ignore reality, you are choosing loyalty to the future instead of obedience to the past. You stop narrating your life as a victim of circumstances and start narrating it as an observer of a transition already in motion. The reason ignoring reality feels uncomfortable at first is because the nervous system is addicted to familiarity, not happiness. Your body has memorized certain emotional patterns and calls them safe, even when they are painful. Financial stress, emotional disappointment, self-doubt, these states feel normal because they've been rehearsed. When you decide internally that your life has changed, your body resists, not because you are wrong, but because you are unfamiliar. This is where most people quit. They mistake discomfort for failure. They assume that if reality hasn't changed yet, the decision didn't work. But discomfort is not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's a sign the old identity is dissolving. The subconscious mind does not update instantly just because you want it to. It updates through consistency of state. Every time you return to the assumption that what you want is already yours, you weaken the old pattern. Every time you emotionally react to current reality, you strengthen it. Manifestation is not about forcing positive thoughts. It is about emotional neutrality toward appearances and emotional certainty toward outcomes. The most powerful position you can hold is calm expectation, not excitement, not obsession. Calm expectation tells the subconscious that nothing needs to be chased, and what is not chased begins to approach. People who master this do not visualize constantly. They do not affirm all day. They simply refuse to emotionally participate in outcomes they have already decided are temporary. They let reality catch up at its own pace while they live from the identity of someone who already moved on. This is why instant manifestation feels invisible from the outside. There is no drama, no announcement, no urgency, just an internal shift so subtle yet firm that it no longer needs reinforcement. You don't get what you want by wanting it harder. You get it by needing it less. The moment something feels optional to you emotionally, it becomes inevitable physically. Desperation repels because it signals lack. Calm certainty attracts because it signals possession. The subconscious broadcasts this signal through behavior, micro-expressions, choices, and timing, all without conscious effort. Reality listens to consistency, not intensity. You could intensely believe something for one day and undo it with emotional reactions the next. Or you could quietly assume something is done and let time handle the details. The second approach always wins. Ignoring reality means you stop using it as feedback. You stop asking, "Is it working yet?" Because that question implies doubt. Instead, you live as if the answer is already yes. This is not blindness. This is authorship. Once a decision is final internally, time becomes irrelevant. Waiting no longer feels like waiting. It feels like transition. This is why frustration disappears when manifestation is done correctly. You are not hoping anymore. You are allowing. Hope says, maybe. Assumption says, of course. The universe does not respond to effort. It responds to identity. Ask yourself this quietly. If what I want were already mine, how would I move through today? How would I speak? What would I stop worrying about? What would I no longer tolerate? Then live from those answers without announcing them. Silence strengthens belief. Every time you don't react to old triggers, you break a loop. Every time you choose calm over panic, you rewrite a program. Every time you trust your internal decision more than external noise, you assert authorship over your life. This is not spiritual bypassing. This is psychological mastery. You are not ignoring reality because you are weak. You are ignoring it because you understand how it works. Reality is a delayed response system. What you are experiencing today was ordered by yesterday's assumptions. What you decide today will become visible later. The only question is whether you will stay loyal to the decision long enough to see it reflected. Most people cancel their manifestations emotionally before they materialize physically. They decide, then doubt. They assume, then check. They choose, then react. Consistency is the real secret. If you can hold a state without emotional contradiction, reality must comply. Not because it wants to, but because it has no alternative. You are not asking for permission. You are declaring authorship. And once you understand this, you stop feeling small. You stop feeling rushed. You stop feeling powerless. You realize you were never meant to fight reality. At some point, you begin to notice something subtle but powerful. The urge to do more fades. The need to constantly think about what you want loses intensity. This is not because you stopped caring. It's because caring has transformed into knowing, and knowing is quiet. When something is truly decided internally, it no longer demands attention. You don't obsess over what you already own. You don't mentally rehearse what feels normal. The mind relaxes when there is no internal conflict. That relaxation is the signal. Most people believe manifestation requires effort because they are constantly fighting themselves. One part of them wants change, while another part remains loyal to the old identity. This internal split drains energy and creates confusion. Once the split ends, effort disappears. The subconscious mind only resists change when it senses instability. If you keep switching between belief and doubt, it stays cautious. But when your assumption becomes stable, the subconscious stops arguing and starts organizing. Stability does not come from repetition alone. It comes from emotional neutrality. The less emotional charge you attach to the outcome, the faster it becomes real. This sounds counterintuitive, but it is consistent with how the nervous system works. Strong emotional attachment implies lack. Calm presence implies possession. This is why people often manifest what they want only after they stop trying. The trying was signaling absence. The letting go signaled ownership. Letting go does not mean forgetting your desire. It means releasing resistance to its arrival. The fastest way to do this is to stop using the desire as a measure of your self-worth. When your happiness depends on an outcome, you unconsciously push it away. When your happiness is independent of it, you create space for it to enter. Space is power. Reality fills space automatically. Your job is not to fill the space with thinking. Your job is to stop collapsing it with worry. Once you understand this, your inner world becomes quieter. You stop narrating every moment. You stop evaluating progress. You stop asking if you're on the right path. You trust the path because you chose it. This trust changes how time feels. Days stop feeling heavy. Waiting stops feeling painful. There is a lightness in knowing that nothing is required of you except consistency of being. You are no longer chasing outcomes. You are maintaining alignment. Alignment is not something you do. It is something you stop interrupting. The more you interrupt with doubt, urgency, and emotional reactions, the more you delay. The more you allow, the faster things unfold naturally. There is a reason people say, "It happened when I least expected it." What they really mean is, "It happened when I stopped interfering." Interference is emotional micromanagement. When you let the subconscious handle the details, life becomes intelligent in ways you could never consciously plan. Conversations happen at the right time. You meet the right people without trying. Ideas appear fully formed. Solutions present themselves before problems escalate. This is not luck. This is alignment responding to clarity. Clarity comes from decision. Decision is the most underestimated force in the universe. A decision that is emotionally final rearranges perception instantly. You begin to notice doors that were always there but invisible to the old identity. You feel guided, not because something external is controlling you, but because your internal compass has stopped spinning. Most people never experience this because they never truly decide. They want options. They want backups. They want guarantees. And in doing so, they signal uncertainty. Uncertainty creates delay. You don't need certainty about the process. You need certainty about the identity. Once the identity is chosen, the process becomes irrelevant. This is why affirmations fail for most people. They repeat words while remaining emotionally loyal to the old self. Words without identity are noise. Identity without words is power. You can sit in silence and shift your entire life if the internal assumption changes. The key is to stop negotiating with reality. Negotiation implies weakness. Declaration implies authority. You do not ask reality for permission to change. You assume it already has. When something goes wrong externally, you no longer panic. You recognize it as a transitional moment. You do not interpret setbacks as signs. You interpret them as echoes leaving your system. This interpretation is critical. Meaning shapes momentum. If you assign negative meaning to temporary resistance, you strengthen it. If you assign neutral or positive meaning, you weaken it. Everything that shows up after a decision is either alignment or clearing. Nothing is punishment. The old identity will test you one last time. It will whisper doubts. It will point to time passing. It will highlight things not working yet. Not because it's right, but because it's fading. Do not argue with it. Do not fight it. Simply do not respond. Silence is the final confirmation of mastery. When the old voice speaks and you remain unmoved, the new identity locks in. At that point, manifestation is no longer something you do. It's something that happens around you. People will notice a change before you do. They will comment on your calm, your confidence, your presence. You will shrug it off because it feels normal. Normal is powerful. What feels normal to you becomes inevitable in the world. This is the real secret behind instant manifestation. Not speed, not techniques, not effort, normalization. The moment your desire feels like your baseline instead of a fantasy, reality has already lost the argument. You are no longer becoming, you are being, and reality always follows being. There comes a moment when discipline becomes unnecessary, not because you became lazy, but because resistance dissolved. Discipline is only required when you are forcing yourself to act against your identity. Once your identity aligns, action becomes automatic. This is why true consistency never feels like work. You stop motivating yourself. You stop pushing. You stop tracking progress obsessively. You simply move in ways that feel natural to who you are now. People often misunderstand this and assume they need stronger willpower. Willpower is a temporary override. Identity is permanent control. When you live from identity, you don't need reminders. You don't need accountability. You don't need external pressure. You act because it would feel strange not to. This is where impatience quietly disappears. Impatience is not about time. It's about mistrust. The more you trust your internal decision, the less you feel the urge to rush outcomes. Time becomes a neutral background instead of an enemy. Most people rush because they are still emotionally checking whether the manifestation is real. They are testing reality, and every test carries doubt. The moment you stop testing, results accelerate. Acceleration happens when resistance reaches zero. Resistance does not look like negativity. It looks like overthinking. It looks like micromanaging. It looks like constantly imagining how things must happen. The universe does not need your plan. It needs your permission to move freely. Permission is granted through detachment. Detachment is often misunderstood as indifference. It is not indifference. It is trust without supervision. When you detach, you stop interfering with natural intelligence. You stop correcting the process. You stop steering every turn. And in doing so, you allow paths you could never logically predict to open effortlessly. This is why people say manifestation works in unexpected ways. Of course it does. If it happened exactly how you planned, it would be limited by your current awareness. Reality is far more creative than the conscious mind. Fear dissolves naturally in this state, not because you confronted it, but because it no longer serves a purpose. Fear only exists to protect an identity you are no longer attached to. Once you stop identifying with the old self, fear has nothing to guard. This is a critical shift. You don't eliminate fear by fighting it. You eliminate fear by outgrowing the version of you that needed it. The more secure you feel internally, the less fear can attach. Fear cannot survive in certainty. Certainty does not mean knowing every step. It means knowing the destination is not negotiable. This certainty changes how you respond to challenges. You no longer see obstacles as threats. You see them as logistics. Logistics do not affect belief. They only require adjustment. This is why emotionally mature manifestors are unshakable. They adapt without doubting. They adjust without questioning the outcome. They move without hesitation because they are not asking if. They are only deciding how. And even the how becomes less important over time. Eventually you realize that your only real responsibility is maintaining internal alignment. Everything else is secondary. Alignment does not require effort. It requires awareness. Awareness of when you are slipping back into old emotional patterns. Awareness of when you are reacting instead of observing. Awareness of when you are narrating instead of allowing. The moment you notice, you return to neutrality. Neutrality is not passive, it is powerful. Neutrality tells the subconscious that nothing is wrong. And when nothing is wrong internally, reality stops producing problems to get your attention. Problems are feedback loops. When you stop reacting, the loop breaks. Life becomes quieter, cleaner, simpler. You stop living in anticipation of change and start living from completion. Completion is not the physical arrival of the desire. Completion is the emotional closure around it. When something feels complete internally, the mind stops revisiting it. And what the mind stops revisiting becomes effortless to manifest. This is why people experience sudden shifts after long periods of stagnation. Nothing changed externally, something resolved internally. Resolution is final. Once resolved, the mind stops generating counterarguments. The nervous system relaxes. Behavior adjusts automatically. Opportunities align naturally. And reality follows. At this stage, you are no longer manifesting individual things. You are manifesting from a new baseline. Your default expectations shift upward. What once felt impossible now feels reasonable. What once felt intimidating now feels manageable. What once felt out of reach now feels normal. Normal is the key. Your life expands to match what feels normal to you. This expansion is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't seek validation. It simply happens. You stop explaining yourself. You stop defending your choices. You stop justifying your confidence. You are not trying to convince anyone, including yourself. Conviction replaced persuasion. This is when you realize that ignoring reality was never about escape. It was about leadership. You didn't deny reality. You outgrew it. At a certain point, you stop wondering whether this state will last. That question itself belongs to the old identity. The new identity does not ask if it will disappear, because it no longer sees itself as temporary. It is not something you are trying on. It is something you have accepted. Acceptance is the lock. Once locked, consistency is no longer something you maintain. It is something that maintains itself. This is where many people sabotage themselves without realizing it. They finally reach alignment, and then they start questioning it. They analyze it. They become self-conscious about it. And in doing so, they pull themselves out of the very state that created the results. The solution is simple but not obvious. Stop watching yourself. Self-observation becomes harmful when it turns into self-monitoring. Monitoring implies control. Control implies fear of loss. Fear of loss implies attachment to the old identity. You don't need to protect alignment. Alignment protects itself when you stop interfering. This is why the most powerful state is relaxed certainty. Not excitement, not vigilance. Relaxed certainty allows life to unfold without resistance. When success begins to appear externally, this relaxed certainty becomes even more important. External change can tempt you back into reaction mode. Praise, attention, money, opportunity, all of it can trigger old patterns if you're not grounded internally. The key is to relate to success the same way you related to desire once alignment was achieved, calmly. You don't cling to it. You don't chase more out of fear, it will disappear. You allow it to be part of your environment without making it your identity. This is maturity. When you make outcomes your identity, you become fragile. When you make alignment your identity, outcomes become stable. Stability does not come from holding tightly. It comes from not needing to hold at all. The moment you stop needing proof, proof multiplies. The moment you stop fearing loss, abundance stabilizes. The moment you stop trying to deserve, you naturally receive. This is not arrogance. It is internal order. Your nervous system learns that good things are safe, that success does not require tension, that ease is not a threat. Most people lose what they manifest because their system does not feel safe holding it. So it unconsciously creates chaos to return to familiarity. This is why locking identity is more important than achieving goals. Goals are temporary. Identity is permanent. When identity is stable, goals arrive and stay. You no longer fear regression because there is nothing to regress to. The old identity no longer feels like home. Home is calm. Home is clarity. Home is neutrality. This is the final shift. From this place, you stop thinking in terms of manifestation entirely. You stop categorizing experiences as successes or failures. You simply experience life responding to you. You notice that reality is softer, more cooperative, less resistant, not because the world changed, but because you stopped pushing against it. You no longer wake up thinking about what needs to happen. You wake up grounded in who you are. And from that grounding, action flows naturally. Action without tension is powerful. Words spoken without insecurity are persuasive. Decisions made without fear are clean. Presence without agenda is magnetic. This is why people are drawn to those who live in alignment. Not because they try to impress, but because they are not trying at all. Trying repels. Being attracts. You do not need to convince reality of anything. Reality responds automatically to coherence. Coherence is when your thoughts, emotions, and assumptions point in the same direction without contradiction. The moment contradiction ends, manifestation becomes inevitable. Time stops feeling heavy because you are no longer waiting for permission to live. You live now, and reality adjusts to keep up. This is the paradox. The more fully you live from completion, the faster completion appears externally. Not because you demanded it, because you allowed it. Ignoring reality was never about pretending. It was about understanding that reality is a mirror with a delay. Once you stop arguing with the mirror and start adjusting what it reflects, life becomes simple. Not easy. Simple. Simple because you know where power is. Simple because you know who decides. Simple because you no longer confuse appearance with truth. You don't need motivation anymore. You don't need reassurance. You don't need signs. You are the signal. Eventually, you realize that life stops testing you once you stop testing yourself. The constant internal questioning fades. The need to prove, validate, or justify disappears. You are no longer negotiating with outcomes. You are no longer asking whether you deserve more. You simply operate from the assumption that expansion is natural. This is when peace becomes your default state. Not because everything is perfect, but because nothing feels threatening anymore. You stop bracing for disappointment. You stop preparing for failure. You stop scanning reality for signs of danger. The nervous system finally understands that you are safe. Not because circumstances are ideal, but because your identity is stable. Stability is freedom. From this place, your reactions slow down. You pause before responding. You observe before engaging. You choose instead of reacting. This pause is not hesitation. It is authority. Authority comes from knowing you don't need to rush. Rushing is a habit of those who feel powerless. Calm belongs to those who know outcomes bend in their favor over time. This calm changes everything. People listen differently when you speak. Opportunities approach instead of being chased. Situations resolve themselves without force. You stop feeling like life is something you must manage and start experiencing it as something that responds. This is mastery. Mastery does not announce itself. It is quiet, steady, and deeply grounded. You no longer fear mistakes because mistakes no longer define you. They are just data, adjustments, temporary movements within a much larger direction that is already set. When the destination is certain, detours lose their power. This is why ignoring reality works. You are not ignoring facts. You are ignoring their emotional authority. You are refusing to let temporary conditions override permanent decisions. Once this becomes natural, you realize that manifestation was never about getting things. It was about becoming someone who no longer lives at the mercy of appearances. Someone who understands that the external world is responsive, not dominant. Someone who knows that consistency of identity always defeats randomness of circumstance. This understanding creates a quiet confidence that cannot be shaken. You don't need to speak about it. You don't need to explain it. It shows up in how you move, how you choose, how you wait, and how you act. Waiting no longer feels passive. Waiting feels powerful. Because you know that what you decided internally has already set forces in motion beyond your conscious awareness. Life is already rearranging. You don't need to hurry it. You don't need to watch it. You don't need to control it. You only need to stay loyal to who you have chosen to be. That loyalty is everything. When loyalty shifts from the past to the future, the present reorganizes itself automatically. This is the final lesson. Ignore reality not because you are disconnected, but because you are deeply connected to the source that creates it. And once you live from that source, nothing external can override you again. If this message resonated with you, if you felt something shift while listening, if you're ready to stop reacting and start leading your life, then stay connected. Subscribe to the Motivational Audiobook Spot, where mindset becomes power, where silence becomes strength, and where you learn to master your inner world so the outer world has no choice but to follow. Listen again. Let it sink in. And remember, reality always follows the one who decides first. There is a moment when you stop waiting for life to prove you right. You realize that needing proof was the last attachment to the old identity. Proof is something beginners ask for. Masters operate without it. When you no longer need confirmation, reality accelerates. This is because the subconscious finally receives a clear message. No mixed signals, no hesitation, no emotional contradiction. Just a quiet, steady assumption that what you decided is already true. At this level, even desire changes form. It no longer feels urgent. It feels distant, almost irrelevant. Not because it faded, but because it was absorbed into who you are. This absorption is the point of no return. You don't fall back because there is nothing to fall back into. The old patterns feel foreign. The old reactions feel unnecessary. The old fears feel exaggerated. You have moved past them. From here, life begins to reflect you faster than ever before. Not because you are forcing it, but because there is no resistance left to slow it down. Resistance always came from divided identity. Now there is only alignment. Alignment does not mean perfection. You still have emotions. You still experience contrast. But none of it shakes your core assumption. Temporary states no longer rewrite permanent beliefs. This distinction changes everything. You stop identifying with moods. You stop dramatizing days. You stop labeling moments as good or bad. You see everything as movement within a direction that is already locked. This is why stress dissolves. Stress requires uncertainty. Certainty removes urgency. Urgency creates tension. Tension creates interference. Interference delays results. When certainty arrives, the entire chain collapses. You don't rush phone calls. You don't force conversations. You don't chase validation. You don't replay moments in your mind. You trust. And trust is not blind. It is informed by experience. You have seen what happens when you decide and stay loyal. You have felt reality reorganize before. That memory becomes a foundation. From that foundation, patience becomes natural. Patience is not endurance. Patience is confidence in timing. You understand now that timing is not random. It responds to readiness. And readiness is not about effort. It is about coherence. Once coherence is achieved, timing becomes precise. Things arrive when you are able to receive them without distortion. Distortion comes from fear, insecurity, and attachment. When those dissolve, reception becomes clean. This is why certain opportunities only appear when you stop wanting them. Wanting creates distortion. Being creates clarity. Clarity attracts alignment. Alignment attracts outcomes. This is the flow. At this point, even setbacks feel different. They no longer feel personal. They feel instructional. Sometimes they don't even register emotionally. You adjust and move forward without story. Story is what keeps people stuck. You no longer tell stories about why things happened. You no longer replay explanations. You move on. Momentum increases when narrative decreases. This is maturity. Mature minds do not argue with life. They direct it quietly. You may notice that fewer things trigger you now. Situations that once caused anxiety feel manageable. Conversations that once felt intimidating feel neutral. This neutrality is not numbness. It is strength. Strength without aggression, confidence without noise, power without force. You stop needing to announce your intentions. You stop seeking recognition. You stop comparing timelines. Comparison is impossible when identity is stable. You are no longer racing anyone. You are arriving. And arrival is internal first. Once internal arrival is complete, external arrival is inevitable. This is where manifestation becomes boring in the best way possible. No excitement, no drama, just results appearing in ways that feel obvious in hindsight. People will ask how you did it. You will struggle to explain because the explanation lives beneath words. It lives in decision. It lives in consistency. It lives in silence. And silence is where real power operates. Silence becomes your advantage now. Not the silence of avoidance, but the silence of certainty. You no longer feel compelled to explain yourself because explanation belongs to doubt. When something is real to you, it does not require defense. This silence changes how you show up in the world. You speak less, but your words carry more weight. You move slower, but with precision. You listen more, not because you are unsure, but because you are present. Presence is magnetic. People feel it immediately. They may not understand it, but they sense it. Something about you feels grounded, resolved, unshakable. This is not charisma you practiced. This is alignment made visible. At this level, you are no longer manifesting from desire. You are manifesting from expectation. Expectation is subtle. It does not beg. It does not hope. It assumes. Assumption is the language reality understands best. Reality does not argue with assumptions. It reorganizes itself around them. Beliefs are what shape reality. Emotions are just weather. You don't argue with weather. You let it move. The moment you stop turning emotions into identity, emotional freedom arrives. And emotional freedom is the foundation of all manifestation. Free emotions allow clear assumptions. Clear assumptions create predictable outcomes. This predictability is not boring, it is empowering. You know that no matter what appears temporarily, the direction is stable. Stability creates peace. Peace creates patience. Patience creates precision. Precision creates results. This chain is unbreakable once alignment is established. Now you understand something most people never realize. The goal was never to control reality. The goal was to stop being controlled by it. And once control is removed from the external world, power returns to where it always belonged. Inside. Now you begin to experience a different kind of confidence. Not the loud kind that needs reinforcement, but the quiet kind that does not fluctuate with circumstances. This confidence does not rise when things go well or fall when things feel uncertain. It remains steady because it is not dependent on outcomes. This steadiness becomes your anchor. When challenges appear, you do not feel threatened. You feel curious. Curiosity replaces fear because fear only exists when identity feels fragile. Your identity is no longer up for negotiation. From this place, you stop personalizing resistance. You see it for what it is. Transition, old patterns dissolving, old momentum slowing down, residual energy releasing itself. You do not rush this phase. Rushing would mean you still believe time has power over you. It doesn't. Time responds to alignment. Alignment compresses time. The clearer the assumption, the shorter the delay. This is why some changes appear to happen overnight. They didn't. They were decided long ago internally. Reality is simply catching up. You no longer measure progress by visible milestones. You measure it by internal consistency. Are you calm? Are you grounded? Are you stable regardless of appearance? If the answer is yes, you know you are ahead. This internal metric never lies. External metrics are delayed. Once you trust this, anxiety loses its grip. Anxiety needs uncertainty to survive. When uncertainty disappears, anxiety starves. You stop rehearsing worst-case scenarios. You stop scanning for what could go wrong. You stop living 5 steps ahead in your mind. You come back to now. Presence becomes natural. Presence is where influence lives. People who are present influence environments without effort. Their calm regulates others. Their certainty stabilizes rooms. Their energy sets tone. This is not mystical. It is neurological. Nervous systems sync. Your regulated system invites others to regulate. Your certainty invites clarity. This is why leadership emerges naturally from alignment. You do not need to claim authority. It is felt. From here, your decisions become cleaner. You say no without guilt. You say yes without hesitation. You commit without fear of missing out. Fear of missing out belongs to those who believe opportunity is scarce. You now know opportunity responds to identity. The more aligned you are, the more options appear. This abundance of options does not overwhelm you. It simplifies your life. You choose what resonates and release the rest without attachment. Attachment is unnecessary when supply is constant. This understanding dissolves jealousy, comparison, and impatience. You no longer compare timelines because you are not chasing outcomes. You are living in coherence. Coherence is its own reward. From coherence, results feel earned without effort, earned not through struggle but through alignment. This is the difference between force and flow. Force exhausts. Flow sustains. You stop burning energy proving yourself. You conserve it by being yourself. Energy conserved becomes influence. Influence shapes reality faster than effort ever could. Now you see why ignoring reality was essential. Reality is reactive. Identity is creative. You chose to become creative. This choice changed everything. Even when things don't move immediately, you do not lose faith. Faith is no longer an emotion. It is a baseline assumption. Baseline assumptions shape experience automatically. You do not wake up believing gravity exists. You assume it. That assumption never needs reinforcement. This is how your chosen identity feels now. Natural, unquestioned, stable. And because it is stable internally, it must express externally. This expression is inevitable, not because you wish for it, because you have already accepted it. By now you understand that the power of ignoring reality is not in denial, it is in mastery. You are not blind to circumstances. You are blind to their authority. You no longer allow temporary appearances to dictate permanent decisions. This alone separates those who succeed effortlessly from those who struggle endlessly. The old self, the one that questioned, worried, and doubted, occasionally whispers. That voice may remind you of obstacles, failures, or limitations, but you no longer entertain it. You acknowledge it, observe it, and let it fade. You do not argue. You do not justify. You return to coherence. Return is faster than you think. Consistency of identity is faster than circumstance. You stop seeking external validation. Approval, recognition, and validation belong to those still operating under external rules. You operate under internal law. Your law is identity. Your law is certainty. Your law is calm, and calm carries authority. Calm carries attraction. Calm carries creation. Manifestation, at this point, is no longer about doing or trying. It is about being. Being someone who already possesses what they seek. Being someone who trusts the process because they already decided the outcome internally. Being someone whose internal world is so solid that the external world must bend to match it. The results are inevitable, not because you forced them, not because you worked harder than anyone else, but because you stopped resisting the natural intelligence of your own mind. You aligned yourself with it. You stopped arguing with reality and started becoming its author. Even setbacks now feel different. They are temporary, inconsequential, almost instructional. Every obstacle is just information. Every delay is just recalibration. Nothing threatens you because nothing is capable of shaking an identity that is fully grounded. You no longer fear loss. You no longer cling to outcomes. You no longer chase appearances. You operate from a place of deep security. That security transforms every interaction. People trust you instinctively. Circumstances begin to cooperate. Opportunities appear before you even think to ask. This is the final stage, effortless creation. Results flow because the creator is no longer divided. The mind, body, and emotions are aligned. The nervous system is calm. The subconscious is fully informed. Decisions are made from authority, not panic. Actions are taken without hesitation, and inaction does not generate fear. Your reality now reflects the inner certainty that was established long before it appeared externally. This is why mastery feels effortless. This is why manifestation feels instant. Not because time accelerated, but because your decision was eternal. If you are ready to step fully into this power, to stop reacting, to stop doubting, and to stop allowing appearances to define you, subscribe now to the Motivational Audiobook Spot. Here, every audiobook, every word, and every insight is designed to shift your identity so profoundly that the world has no choice but to follow. Listen, internalize, and repeat. Become the person who doesn't need reality to catch up, because you've already decided where you are going. Reality always follows the one who decides first. At this stage, you realize that the world you see is only a reflection of the world you have already created inside. Every thought, every assumption, every emotional state you hold is broadcasting signals to the universe. The universe does not judge or argue. It responds. It arranges, aligns, and delivers exactly what matches your internal state. Most people live distracted by evidence, waiting for signs, hoping circumstances will change before they feel ready. You no longer do this. You know that waiting is an illusion. Readiness is internal. Alignment is internal. The moment you stabilize, the internal, external events are forced to adjust. This is why ignoring reality is not a denial of life. It is a declaration of sovereignty. You refuse to let temporary conditions dictate who you are, what you deserve, or what you are capable of. Your power now comes from a place deeper than fear, desire, or circumstance. It comes from clarity of identity. Every decision you make now is deliberate, not because you overthink, but because overthinking is unnecessary. You simply respond from a place of coherence. You act when it feels aligned. You wait when it feels aligned. And you release when it feels aligned. You stop forcing results. You stop chasing outcomes. You stop needing proof. Every desire, every goal, every dream is already accounted for because you have anchored it in your internal state. The external world is simply catching up. This stage reveals a crucial truth. Manifestation is not about effort, visualization, or struggle. Manifestation is about elimination. Eliminate doubt. Eliminate attachment. Eliminate reaction to temporary appearances. Remove internal contradiction, and results flow naturally. Even challenges now feel like guidance rather than obstacles. Delays are not punishment. They are calibration. Conflicts are not barriers. They are signals. You respond with neutrality, calm, and authority. Your emotions no longer hijack your choices. They inform them. This is why identity is the ultimate tool. Because while circumstances fluctuate, identity creates permanence. Once internal identity is stabilized, no external fluctuation can shake it. This is the key that most people never discover. This is the difference between reacting to life and directing it. Now, every morning, you step into a world that is already aligned with your inner certainty. You do not wake up to problems. You wake up to opportunities. You do not chase people or outcomes. You allow them to move toward you naturally. You do not seek validation. You embody it internally. Everything becomes effortless because you stopped fighting. You stopped arguing. You stopped proving. You stopped measuring. You became quiet. You became calm. You became the source. And the universe responds to sources, not spectators. If you want to truly internalize this power, to stop letting reality dictate your identity, and to start living from alignment every day, subscribe to the Motivational Audiobook Spot. Here, every word, every story, every audiobook is designed to reprogram your subconscious, stabilize your identity, and make the impossible inevitable. Listen daily. Apply internally. Watch your reality catch up. Because reality always follows the one who decides first. At this stage, you begin to notice something extraordinary. The moment you stop arguing with reality, the universe begins to respond not in random ways, but in precise ways. Opportunities, people, and situations align effortlessly, almost as if life itself is orchestrated to match your internal certainty. You no longer need to push, persuade, or force. You simply allow. This is the real power of ignoring reality, not in denial, but in refusing to let temporary appearances dictate permanent decisions. You realize that every obstacle, every delay, every challenge is not a barrier, it is a signal. It is a message guiding you back to alignment when you stray. Your nervous system begins to stabilize. Emotional storms no longer hijack your thinking. You no longer react with anxiety, frustration, or desperation. Instead, you observe. You assess. You adjust when necessary. Your responses are deliberate, calm, and grounded. The old chaos of overthinking and emotional turbulence disappears because your identity is no longer tethered to external circumstances. This is why consistency is effortless at this level. You don't need motivation. You don't need reminders. You don't need external accountability. The internal shift is complete. Your thoughts, emotions, and assumptions are aligned. Your internal authority now dictates your actions. Action flows naturally, effortlessly, and always in harmony with your desired outcomes. Even fear behaves differently now. Fear does not vanish instantly, but it loses its power over you. Fear belongs to the old self, the version that doubted, hesitated, and waited for proof. The new self observes fear, acknowledges it, and moves forward anyway. Fear becomes information, not instruction. It ceases to be a barrier. Your desires no longer create tension. You no longer obsess over results. You no longer measure your worth by progress. The outcome already exists internally. The external world is merely adjusting to the internal truth. This is why manifestation feels instant. The decision is already made. Reality is simply catching up. You begin to experience life with a clarity few ever attain. Situations that once caused anxiety now feel like neutral data points. Conversations that once felt intimidating now feel effortless. Opportunities that once seemed scarce now appear naturally. Life itself feels responsive, cooperative, and intelligent. This is the ultimate stage of manifestation. Living from identity. Not from desire, not from hope, not from effort, from identity. Identity is permanent. Identity does not fluctuate with circumstances. Identity commands outcomes without effort because it is stable, coherent, and authoritative. This is the level at which the universe no longer negotiates with you. It aligns. And here is the final realization. You are not learning to manipulate reality. You are learning to master yourself. Once mastery occurs internally, mastery manifests externally. The world cannot resist a mind, heart, and nervous system that is fully aligned. If you are ready to step fully into this level of mastery, to stop reacting, to stop doubting, and to stop allowing appearances to dictate your life, subscribe to the Motivational Audiobook Spot. Every audiobook, every insight, and every guided session here is designed to reprogram your subconscious, stabilize your identity, and make your chosen reality inevitable. Listen daily, internalize, apply, and watch as life itself aligns with your decision. Reality always follows the one who decides first. At this level, you realize that the external world is nothing more than a mirror reflecting the inner world you have created. Every interaction, every circumstance, every coincidence is simply the universe confirming your internal state. You no longer wait for signs because you are the sign. You no longer chase outcomes because outcomes are compelled to follow coherence. The difference between those who struggle and those who succeed effortlessly is simple: identity. Most people attempt to manipulate reality, work harder, or convince others, yet their internal world remains fragmented. Their thoughts, emotions, and beliefs contradict each other. They desire abundance while feeling unworthy. They chase success while doubting it is possible. You no longer operate this way. Your internal world is unified. Your beliefs, emotions, and assumptions are coherent. Your nervous system is calm. Your decisions are clear. Your desires are absorbed into your identity rather than clinging as separate objects of need. This coherence creates an irresistible magnetic force that life must respond to. You no longer measure progress by what you see externally. You measure it by your internal state. Are you calm? Are you stable? Are you unshakable regardless of circumstances? If the answer is yes, you know that results are inevitable. External evidence is only a delayed reflection. This is why patience is no longer a struggle. You wait without anxiety because your internal certainty does not waver. Waiting becomes a tool, not a trial. You stop rushing. You stop forcing. You stop trying to control outcomes. You allow reality to catch up, confident that alignment cannot fail. Even setbacks are interpreted differently. Obstacles are no longer threats. They are indicators. Delays are not punishment. They are recalibrations. Every friction you encounter provides feedback about whether you are deviating from coherence or returning to it. You no longer resist, you adjust. You no longer panic, you observe. Fear, doubt, and hesitation no longer define your experience. They may appear momentarily, but they cannot attach to a mind, body, and nervous system that is fully aligned. Fear becomes data, not instruction. Anxiety becomes guidance, not command. Uncertainty becomes neutral, not threatening. From this perspective, manifestation is effortless. It is not achieved through constant effort, visualization, or repeating affirmations. It is achieved by eliminating internal contradiction, by stabilizing your identity, by anchoring desire into certainty. When identity is permanent, results are inevitable. At this stage, every interaction, every decision, and every action flows naturally from internal alignment. Conversations become effortless. Opportunities arrive without chasing. Relationships stabilize. Financial resources appear organically. Creativity expands. Energy remains consistent. Life itself seems to accelerate because you are no longer resisting it internally. This is the ultimate form of power, not forcing reality, but becoming a state of being that reality cannot resist. You do not manipulate outcomes, you embody them. You do not struggle for results, you radiate them. You do not need to convince the world, you only need to remain coherent. At this point, manifestation no longer feels like effort. Desire is absorbed into identity, and reality naturally organizes itself to match. You stop repeating affirmations or visualizing because the program is already running internally. Your identity radiates coherence, and the universe responds automatically. You begin to notice subtle patterns that favor you. Conversations open doors. Opportunities appear in unexpected ways. Timing aligns perfectly. Circumstances bend to match your internal state. Life begins to feel responsive, cooperative, and intelligent. It is no longer random or chaotic. It is ordered by your internal certainty. The most powerful realization comes next. The world cannot resist someone whose identity is unwavering. Influence, respect, and opportunity are not pursued. They arrive naturally because coherence is magnetic. People sense it. Energy aligns with it. Situations respond to it. This is mastery. Mastery is not about effort or struggle. Mastery is internal stability. Mastery is coherence. Mastery is becoming the person who no longer negotiates with life, but directs it effortlessly from within. If you are ready to step fully into this state, to stop reacting to circumstances, and to live from alignment every day, subscribe to the Motivational Audiobook Spot. Every audiobook here is designed to reprogram your subconscious, stabilize your identity, and make your chosen reality inevitable. At this level, you notice something profound. The energy you once invested in chasing outcomes is now fully available to reinforce identity. Every ounce of effort previously spent on worrying, doubting, or controlling has been redirected internally. You are no longer depleted by circumstance. You are energized by coherence. You begin to see the subtle ways the universe responds to internal certainty. Conversations naturally flow in your favor. Opportunities appear unexpectedly, as if life itself is arranging events around your stability. Doors that once seemed closed now swing open with ease. People respond differently, not because you persuaded them, but because your internal state communicates authority, calm, and confidence without words. This is the power of ignoring reality, not in denial, but in mastery. You are fully aware of circumstances, but they no longer hold authority over your emotions, decisions, or actions. You have reclaimed control where it always belonged. inside. Your state of being now dictates outcomes more effectively than effort ever could. Patience becomes effortless. Waiting no longer feels like inaction. You understand that life is always moving, but manifestation requires alignment, not force. The delay you once feared is now recognized as perfect timing. You act when alignment calls and wait when it calls. This rhythm replaces struggle with flow. Even setbacks now feel different. Obstacles are no longer threats. They are recalibrations. Challenges are lessons, not punishments. Temporary failures do not threaten your identity. They only provide data to refine your coherence. Fear, doubt, and insecurity may appear, but they cannot attach to a mind, body, and nervous system that is fully aligned. Your desires no longer create tension. They exist within you as natural extensions of identity. You no longer need to chase, push, or convince. Reality responds automatically because coherence is magnetic. You radiate authority, calm, and certainty, qualities that life cannot resist. You stop measuring success by external markers. Instead, you measure it by internal consistency. Are you calm? Are you grounded? Are you unshakable regardless of circumstances? If the answer is yes, results are inevitable. External evidence is only a delayed reflection of internal reality. This is where mastery becomes effortless. You no longer manipulate outcomes. You embody them. You no longer struggle to achieve. You radiate results. You no longer rely on motivation or reinforcement. You are the motivation and the reinforcement. Your identity itself becomes the instrument through which life unfolds. And this is the secret few understand. The world cannot resist someone who has fully aligned internally. Influence, opportunities, and abundance arrive naturally. People feel it. Situations respond. Circumstances adjust without intervention. Life itself becomes cooperative. If you are ready to step fully into this power, to stop reacting to appearances, and to live every day from alignment, subscribe to the Motivational Audiobook Spot. Every audiobook, insight, and guided session is designed to stabilize your identity, reprogram your subconscious, and make your chosen reality inevitable. Internalize, apply, live it. And remember, reality always follows the one who decides first. At this stage, you begin to notice how effortless life becomes once internal alignment is fully established. You no longer react to circumstances. You no longer feel urgency to control outcomes. You realize that everything you once chased externally, success, recognition, opportunity, approval, was always dependent on external conditions. Now you understand that the true source of all results is internal. Identity is the anchor. Identity determines perception, energy, and influence. When identity is coherent, external circumstances inevitably align. Patience no longer requires effort. Waiting is no longer a test of endurance. Delays are not frustrating. They are natural recalibrations, aligning life to your internal certainty. You no longer panic or overthink. You no longer rehearse worst-case scenarios. You simply trust the internal decision that has already been made. Even challenges now feel different. Obstacles are no longer threats. They are indicators, feedback, recalibration. Setbacks do not shake you because the foundation of your identity is permanent. Fear may appear briefly, doubt may whisper, but they cannot take root. They pass like clouds across a stable sky. Manifestation now feels natural. Desire is no longer separate from identity. It is fully absorbed. You no longer need constant reinforcement, visualization, or affirmations. The program is running. Coherence radiates, and life responds automatically. You start noticing subtle patterns in reality. Conversations flow effortlessly. Opportunities appear without chasing. Timing aligns. Resources materialize as if life itself is cooperating with your internal state. Circumstances bend naturally to your coherence. At this level, influence becomes automatic. People are drawn to your energy, not because you are trying to impress, but because your calm certainty communicates authority. Your internal stability organizes your external environment without effort. Leadership, respect, and opportunities appear naturally because coherence is magnetic. You no longer measure progress externally, you measure it internally. Are you calm? Are you consistent? Are you unshakable regardless of circumstances? If the answer is yes, results are inevitable. External proof is only a delayed reflection of internal reality. This is mastery, effortless, consistent, permanent. You do not manipulate reality, you embody it. You do not struggle for results, you radiate them. Motivation is no longer needed, your identity provides it. Confidence is no longer external, it is built into your very being. And here is the truth few ever realize. The world cannot resist someone whose identity is unwavering. Opportunities, abundance, and influence flow naturally. Situations resolve without force. Life itself aligns because internal coherence cannot be ignored. If you are ready to step fully into this state, to stop reacting, to stop chasing, and to live every day from internal alignment, subscribe to the Motivational Audiobook Spot. Every audiobook, insight, and guided session is designed to stabilize identity, reprogram the subconscious, and make your chosen reality inevitable. Now you begin to notice how naturally life begins to cooperate once internal alignment is complete. You no longer feel the need to push, force, or convince. Circumstances no longer dictate your emotional state. You observe, adjust if necessary, and maintain calm authority. This calm becomes your source of power. The moment you stop reacting to temporary appearances, life stops testing you. You no longer seek proof, validation, or signs. The external world simply mirrors the coherence you have already established internally. This is why true manifestation feels effortless. You are not forcing results. You are becoming the person whose state of being ensures results are inevitable. Your patience transforms. Waiting no longer feels like deprivation. Delays are no longer obstacles. They are simply recalibrations, aligning life with your internal certainty. You do not panic when outcomes take longer than expected. You do not overthink. You remain anchored because the decision has already been made inside. Obstacles are no longer threatening. Challenges are no longer frustrating. They are information. Temporary failures are feedback, not punishment. Even fear and doubt may appear, but they cannot take root. They pass quickly because your identity is coherent and unwavering. You are no longer ruled by emotions. They are observed, acknowledged, and released. Desires no longer generate tension. They exist fully integrated into your identity. You no longer chase them, worry about them, or visualize them constantly. The program is running. Coherence radiates from within, and reality responds automatically. You notice subtle shifts in reality. Conversations flow with ease. Opportunities appear without effort. Timing aligns naturally. Resources arrive seemingly without struggle. Circumstances bend to your coherence because identity cannot be ignored. Influence becomes effortless. People are drawn to your energy not because you demand attention, but because calm certainty communicates authority. Your internal stab.